Wow. How magnificent. So welcome, everyone. I feel like I'm usually up here, the platform leader. I feel like I should be saying, I'm Nancy, I'm your platform leader today. But I'm going to turn this one off. Yeah. Actually, I'm going to move this. But instead of being platform leader, I get to run the show. So with the help of everyone here, I'm thrilled to be here. I guess I should say a word about my hair, huh? Yeah, well, it was one of those things. Spirit many times has lessons for us to learn. And this year, my learning, the book that I'm writing by living it, is saying yes. It's quite an unusual experience to say yes to a lot of things. So I'd had this idea of having my hair dyed like a peacock, and it was back in March, and it was muted colors, and it was really quite lovely out in California. So I got the color names and gave them to my hairdresser here, and she ordered them, never having used that brand before, and not knowing that they were neon and muted. And when she's putting in the green, I'm looking in the mirror going, that's not the right color. But this is how Spirit works. I was leaving immediately after that for a trip to Chicago. There was no time to undo or redo anything. It was like, go for it. And I was going to have it changed, somehow covered over, because it was just too bright, too magnificently bright for me. It didn't match who I thought I was. And the morning the next Tuesday, when I was going to go in and see her, I had 4 women at the pool. I'm over at Mashpee Fitness. Look me in the eye and go, I love your hair, especially the green. And I went, okay, message received. I will grow into it. So it's really fun because you know what? Life is really magnificent. We are all magnificent beings, and sometimes we have to go to a little extreme to remember that. But the more we look for magnificence, the more we find it. So what exactly is spiritual magnificence? For me, because I'm the one making all this up today, I think it's simply knowing the truth of who we are and living from that truth. And the truth is, and it's what we teach here all the time, we are part and parcel an expression of source. That which is love has poured itself into each one of us. And when we really not just know that intellectually, but live from that in the day-to-day life, we're really living from our spiritual magnificence. We're like little mini versions of Source. So we have all the capacity of creation just on a little mini scale compared to God, to the universe. So since this is who we are, every one of us is an expression of God. We are all inherently spiritually magnificent. How come we don't know that? I mean, why do we forget? Why do we, myself included, day in and day out, forget and live as though we were less than that? What is it that gets in the way of living from that experience every day? Well, first and foremost, it's this thing called negative feelings and emotions and thoughts about ourselves. The biggest one, of course, being, I'm not good enough. The I'm not good enough comes and sweeps in, moves through us, and we're no longer feeling so magnificent, are we? We're thinking, whoa, someone else could do that better. Or we tell ourselves all kinds of things, and every time we do that, we bring ourselves back down and out of the truth of who we are. Another way we lose track of our magnificence is we compare ourselves to others, don't we? I'd learned somewhere long ago that it's like, don't compare. But if you must compare, compare down, not up. Meaning, at least come out looking better. If you must compare and judge. But really, we're not in competition, even though it sure looks like that, doesn't it? The truth is we're each here individually. We've come in with a plan, and we are doing all we can to be the best that we know how to be. So the comparisons and the judgments of ourselves and others takes away from who we really are. Some people here might know of a thing called perfectionism. I don't want to ask for a show of hands, but I've heard that that's rampant, of things have to be perfect. You have to have things just a certain way. And then you'll think you're okay. But it doesn't really work, does it? Because there's no such thing as perfect. And even when it is a certain way, it still doesn't get what you're looking for, which is that inner knowing of your magnificence. It's not outside. There's another one that steps into our way, and that's called our ego. The negative side of it, the shadow side, not the healthy ego that we all need and we all have. That's a good part. But it's the other ego, the one that says, I have to know it all, or I am a know-it-all, or whatever. You know, we all have our own versions of the ego that gets in the way and takes our view away from that knowing of, no, we're all here as souls in the body, and that's the whole story, just expressing it in different ways. And then another way is thinking you can make mistakes. You know, how many people think that they've made a mistake? Didn't I think this was a mistake? Yes, absolutely. We think we can make mistakes. And that means we're not doing it good enough. It's all kind of the same stuff and different spokes on the wheel, different variations on the same thing. Until we breathe and we go, there are no mistakes. There's only learnings. All we have to do is open up to say, okay, knowing I am divinely led, I'm divinely guided at all times and in all places. What's this about? What is it I need to do? What's being called forth from me? And when we turn it around, we start living from that mindset, all of a sudden life takes on a whole different way of being. So when we have these thoughts and the ways of being that step in the way of us feeling magnificent, what we feel is not worthy and not deserving. But here's what's really true. You can't be more worthy than you already are. You cannot be more worthy. And if you're thinking, oh, that's not good news, because if you don't feel worthy, you don't want to think you can't be more worthy. But here's the thing. Just because you feel not worthy, that doesn't mean you aren't worthy. We are all inherently worthy of all good, of knowing and living from this spiritual magnificence. Just because something feels true doesn't mean it is true. That is something I repeat to every client every day, all the time. We think because something feels true, I feel unworthy, that means that's true. It's not true. It just gets in the way of us being who we really are. In a moment of feeling unworthy or not significant, it's just a feeling. In truth, in that moment, you are absolutely fully worthy of all good, of the kingdom of God as it is. It's like, you know, some of you may have seen on Facebook, there's this, I don't know who it is, it's a man that's talking, he's got a $20 bill, and he crumples it up, and it's stained, and he keeps doing all these awful things to this $20 bill. It looks really awful. And yet, it's still worth $20, isn't it? It's such a powerful message to know no matter what happens, we're still worthy. So we can't be less than magnificent spiritually. But we can feel it, and we can act it. So our job as spiritual beings here is to wake up to this truth of our magnificence. So how do we do that? How do we wake up? Well, physically, there's about several ways, many ways to wake up. But here's 3 different ways to wake up. One of them is with an alarm. It goes off, and what do? Hit that snooze button. Go back to sleep. Hit the snooze button again. Go back to sleep. Hit the snooze button, and then you throw the clock across the room. And you're late. You jump up finally, you're rushing around, you're frenzied, you're yelling, you miss an important meeting. It doesn't go well. But that is a way that, I know no one in here wakes up like that, but that's a way other people wake up, isn't it? Just really at the effect of that alarm going off. There's another way of waking up, which means the alarm goes off and you respond. You jump out of bed, you start rushing around, But you make it. Everything goes according to kind of your plan. So you have gotten where you need to go in the morning. And then there's another way, which is there's no alarm at all. You just simply gently wake up at the time that you desire. Your eyes may still be closed. You're listening to the sounds. You're listening to the birds out there. Perhaps the water's nearby. You may be aware of a loved one next to you. You can hear the breathing or children. But you wake up in gratitude. And it's a slow, gentle, a new day. What do I want to create? It's a very different experience than the hitting the alarm snooze button. So we can wake up spiritually to our magnificence in the same kinds of ways. We can hit the snooze button, which means there's a crisis or challenge that comes and we don't wake up. We just ignore it, we fix it, we do something, but we go on the way we were. And then there's another challenge that comes. The snooze button, the alarm goes again, and it's a little louder this time. It's a little bit more serious health challenge or a little bit more serious financial loss. Something more happens. And what do? Hit the snooze button, go back to sleep. We're not waking up to what life is trying to tell us until it gets so much that you look around and what's happened to your life? You're at the effect. Everything is happening to you. This is where this kind of life is. Life happens to me, which means there's conditions in life and I'm at the effect of that which is going on. If there's an economy situation going on, I'm at the effect of that. If there's a flu bug going around, I'm at the effect of that. If there's someone who doesn't want to be with me, I'm at the effect of that. I make decisions based on out there. Life happens to me. It's the alarm out there that's determining how I respond. That's one choice, and we have all done that. And we continue to do it. There's times when we become the effect. There's a thing in Cape Cod in the summer called traffic. They're back. We can get to become the effect of that, can't we? If we're in a rush and all of a sudden there's a lot of people, I mean, what used to be, you sit maybe 3 or 4 cars back and now you're going through 3 lights waiting to get through. You can really get worked up. You become the effect. Out there, the traffic, the lights, the tourists, they're affecting who you are. So we all do this from time to time. The next way we wake up, though, is to respond to the alarm. So you respond to a crisis. Something happens, and you get put on your spiritual path. This often happens with a disease, a health crisis, or a death. Many people, the death of a loved one shakes you up so much that you start looking for more answers. And it's on a day-to-day basis, we'll forget who we are, and then all of a sudden we'll see something, or we'll remember something, we'll take a breath, and oh, that's right, wait a minute. I'm not at the effective out there. I have some sort of power in my life, meaning I get to create from inside. I know that what inside is what gets reflected out there. It's where you start to create the parking spaces, I want a parking spot, and I want to create this, and I want to manifest this. It's the visualization phase of waking up. And this is when life happens by me. I have an effect. Life is happening because I'm doing things, and it's showing up in my world. It's what all the visualization is about, that we have this ability to create, and it's coming by my abilities to hold that visual and to do the work. So that's another way of waking up spiritually, which we all do. And now there's a third way too, which is the gently listening to your inner voice and paying attention. So there's not necessarily even a crisis going on. It's just something people here have been doing this for years and years. It becomes a way of being, that you know who you are, and you work the principles that are taught, and life happens through you, which means that it's much more a whole way of being, that you walk in gratitude, and you know that the truth of who you are is the truth for everyone else. And it's a different way of being in the world. It's very different than the people who are at the effective life, isn't it? It's life happens through me, becoming more spiritually aware and awake, learning all the work that you do here, and especially being full of gratitude. It's a real sure sign of, you know, that life is just happening through you because there's so much gratitude. So, you know, as a part of the spiritual community, this is not new news. You already know you're an expression of the infinite. But guess what? Every night, physically, we go to bed and we go to sleep, don't we? Every single night we fall asleep. And sometimes during the day, we nod off. We fall asleep. We take naps. You know, it's so much fun to get older and get to take naps again. But we fall asleep. We're never physically awake 100% of the time and 100% awake even during the day. We go unconscious. And we do the same thing spiritually. We know these principles. This is not new. So how come we're not living them 100% of the time? Why aren't we just going around magnificent? It's because we nod off. We forget. We fall asleep. And then we wake up again. And then we fall asleep. And then we wake up again. That's the path, isn't it? We're not looking for perfection here. It really is that we forget. Even when we know this stuff, the conditions around us can get pretty hairy at times, and we forget and we get caught up. And then we remember. At some point, we remember. We come back to our breath. We come back to the source within us. And we wake up again when we're reminded of the truth. And then, you know what? We go back to sleep again, don't we? The goal is simply to stay more awake more of the time. It was years ago, back when we were over at the conservatory, Kevin was giving a talk, and I have remembered that for like 18, 17 years now. He gave the definition of enlightenment, which I thought was brilliant. It was, how quickly do you move over to the side of God? Meaning, how quickly do you wake back up? How quickly do you remember? How quickly do you come back to your breath? And sometimes it's within a few minutes, sometimes it's within a few days, and sometimes it's months. And if it's really hard, it can be years before you wake back up again. But the whole thing is, oh, yes, that's right. This is all a learning. I came in here to learn. So what's this about? So that's what I actually did with my hair, because I really was not pleased. You can't imagine how unpleased I was to be neon green. It's not who I see myself as. So the next morning when I was in Chicago, I woke up and it was that gentle waking up, and in that kind of that dreamy state, but still awake, I started speaking to Spirit, and I basically said, I'm not amused. But I know there's no mistakes, and this was set up so that nothing could be undone because I had a plane to catch. So that means there's something that's going on here. So what's up? Please enlighten me, because I'm really unhappy. And it was, when I dyed my hair the first time, it was about being bold and just stepping out of my comfort zone. Well, this time it was like, basically the message was, well, we're just upping the ante. Taking you beyond your comfort zone, taking you into a place where you think you can't go, so that you can also let others know they can go places they thought they couldn't go. And by the way, it's just hair. So when we know that everything is ordered, we can come into that place more quickly and wake up, and then we get to enjoy the ride of life more. So how is it that you actually live from your spiritual magnificence? Think about, well, just now we just saw this, Oriana and Jack singing. When Oriana's belting out that song, is that not magnificent? Is she not living from her own magnificence? It's not about us. It's just being so fully, this is who I am. We all do that. We got to have that expression here. When the kids come up, you'll see the little kids. They're just naturally magnificent. They're just being themselves. It's for all of us. It's simply being when you're in line with who you really are, with what you love, when your heart is open, when you're doing what you love, when you're being how you want to be, it's really pretty simple. It's about being you. It's just letting that magnificence that is you shine. But like I started, what happens is we have all these thoughts and stuff that closes it down, and then we have to open it back up. And that's the path. It's like a tuning fork. There's a resonance within you. There is that within you when you just know you're just being. And there's a gratitude and a love. It's however you experience it. But that's magnificent, isn't it? And that's when you are living as the expression of who you've come in to be. So why does this even matter? Why is it that when you listen to that still small voice and you take action and you're in the flow, why does that even matter? How can we care about being magnificent? Why not just go around being mediocre? It's easier, I think. Well, it's because of several reasons, but one of which is the butterfly effect. And you might have heard of this. This is actually, it's scientific. It's not just something that some New Age people made up. The butterfly effect is a concept that small causes have large effects. And it initially it was with weather. It was a man named Edward Lorenz. He was doing the graphs of hurricanes and seeing how they would move through and what influences them. And what he discovered was he usually had 6 decimal points. So he had 6 digits after the decimal point for this graphing. But one time he decided he's just going to cut it off to 3 decimal points, because what does 1,000ths matter? And when he did that, he discovered that the runs of his weather model with initial condition data was rounded off to just 3 decimal points. He was surprised to find that a very small change in initial conditions had created a significantly different outcome. In other words, one little tiny change had a massive outcome. And that's why they call it the butterfly effect, that like a butterfly in Thailand can affect the weather on the other side of the world. It seems preposterous, but they're showing that little tiny changes. And you can even see if you make a little change here and start going in this direction instead of that direction, after time there's a really big difference. So the reason this matters is because as we make little changes, everyone else is affected. Marianne Williamson wrote this book, Healing of America, and she says, if you have a hologram and you break it in 2, then you're left with 2 complete images, each slightly less clear than the original, but total nonetheless. So it is with each of us contains within us not just a piece of the whole, but a level of the whole in its entirety. We're like a hologram of Source. That is why when we change, so does everything on some level, for better or worse. This makes a conscious person feel more responsible for the world, yet more hopeful. For what we do and what we are carry more influence than we might have previously imagined. And so every time you express your own spiritual magnificence, not only do you have a richer, fuller life for yourself, but you're contributing to a larger pool. You help others also awaken and live into their spiritual magnificence. My sister was telling me she was in a workshop out in California, and they were, talking about the same thing, that your thoughts, the thoughts you hold about someone, affect that person. And it's the same way. When we're living from all we can be, we are putting out that energy, and it's affecting everyone around us. And so when we awaken to the spiritual magnificence of who we are and whose we are, it begins to grow stronger and stronger within us, and it spreads. And we begin to nudge others awake. And so each one individualized expression at a time, we become more consciously aware of our divine nature, and then that spreads. The butterfly effect, we're just sending out that into the universe so that others also have this experience that we have. Because what we have when you're aware of your own magnificence, that way of being really is something that so many people don't have. And so by being the best you can be, you're actually helping others to be the best they can be. And so we want to take this into meditation now, all of this. So if you'd like to just take a breath and close your eyes and and breathe into your magnificence. Just breathe in and feel your heart. Bring your attention down into your heart space and become aware of your heart space as you breathe into it and breathe out. You begin to tune into the magnificence of life. The fact of your heart beating is magnificent. And as you dwell in your heart space, you begin to think of things that you're grateful for. The day, the sun, the weather, nature, thinking of animals or birds, or if you have pets and loved ones, you begin to think, just bring that heart energy more and more open as you dwell on the gratitude of loved ones and that which you're grateful for. Expand your awareness so that you begin to become aware of the magnificence of all that is, of that which is the nature of this universe. Open up to your own magnificence. You can tune into the magnificence of the universe. You think of it, this incredible universe, this earth, and the planets, the solar system. Think of the magnificence, the absolute amazing magnificence of all that's been created. And as you tune in and open up to that, you bring that in. There's a frequency of magnificence, and you tune in now to that frequency. Feel it. Breathe it in. Know that you are an expression of the divine, that as this expression of the divine, you are magnificent. And you have access to tune in to the magnificence of the universe. And as you do, begin to fall in love with your own magnificence, with your soul's journey. Fall in love with life. Receive the joy of existence. As you open up and receive, you allow Spirit to move in and through and around you. And so in this next moment of silence, breathe in, be aware, and rest in your own magnificence. As you're in this quiet space, sense the celebration of the universe. Open up to its blessings and give thanks for life, for all that is. Remember that you are one with all that is. You are an expression of the divine. And magnificence, your spiritual magnificence, is your birthright. Breathe it in even more deeply. And over the coming days, let this magnificence surprise you. As you breathe in, you suddenly become aware of the magnificence that is you and that's around you. And you give thanks. And as you come back now, you come back bringing this energy, this vibration, the frequency, the feeling, give it any name you want, but come back filled with the magnificence of all that you are. And so it is. Amen. And now we have another magnificent example of magnificence. The girl learned a new word.
Nancy Canning, everybody.
You have been watching the message from our Sunday celebration service here at Unity on Cape Cod, providing a positive path for spiritual living. Please join us every Sunday morning at 10 a.m. at 147 Walton Ave, Hyannis, Mass. And visit us online at www.unityoncapecod.org.